It's amazing. You know, here is the Tube turning around and saying to Prince, sorry mate, you can't perform because you haven't got a backing band.
We'll talk about that.
It's dark down here. It's quite... Hello and welcome to my channel. This is the channel that's all about music and art, and I've just returned from a 2-day excursion down to the Big Smoke of London. I am one of the planet's biggest Talk fans. I've been really into the band since the early synth days, from the early 80s, and I've probably got every recording that has been commercially available, even the slightly dodgy live albums, which were sort of half bootlegs that were done in Spain. Anyway, and I bought the Spirit of Talk book, and which came out a few years ago. In fact, it's in my bookcase here somewhere. Here we have it. This is a fantastic book. It was out of print for a while, and it's now back in print. It's a wonderful, fantastic artifact about the band Talk. And I was very moved, as I've posted in a previous video. Back in February of this year, it's 2019, Mark Hollis, the lead singer, who is about my age, sadly died. And I was very moved by that. Anyway, in the summer it was announced that there would be a celebration evening in London for Mark Hollis and Talk. And I completely missed this, and it was my eldest son who said, hey, have you seen this, Dad? You know, this is something you would be interested in going to. Of course, by the time I get to actually try and book some tickets, the whole thing was sold out. So I rang up the Royal Festival Hall and they said, well, what we do with returns is we basically just put them back on the website. So if you keep watching the website, some may come up. And it took a few weeks, but by the end of September, I'd managed to nab 2 tickets. So me and my eldest son were going. It was at that point that my youngest son and his girlfriend said, we'd like to go too. So I then have spent since September right the way up until last week looking for tickets for them. And it's been completely sold out as this. Surprisingly, I managed to find him 2 tickets 3 days before the gig. So the 4 of us went to this fantastic concert. It was there was an all-star band which included many of the musicians that had either played on recordings with Talk or they toured with them, and it was the whole evening was really well organised and brilliant. Sold out concert, and obviously there were a few empty seats because some people, I mean, I seen on Facebook that some people at the last minute couldn't go when they were trying to sell their tickets, but generally the gig was sold out. I met a guy on the train going down to London who said, and he saw that I had a Talk t-shirt on, and he said, oh, Talk fan, you going to the gig? I went, yeah. And he was literally sat behind me, so I had a brief chat about how 2 guys from the same city were such massive Talk fans. And he told me that there was a sort of fans get-together drinks before the gig, which I actually couldn't go to because I'd arranged to go out for dinner with my sons and my son's girlfriend. So we were doing that at the same sort of time that this get-together was organised. I'm just going to go through the list of artists who were performing at the gig. We had Alex Taylor. I think Alex Taylor is the guy out of Hot Chip. He's still wearing the same stripy jumper. We had Andy Bell. Andy Bell is from Ride. Now, I was never a fan of Ride, and I'd actually said to a friend last night, oh, well, Ride the band that were sort of an Oasis clone. And he rightly said to me, I knew nothing about their history, he said, well, Andy Bell actually did end up in Oasis, but actually, if anything, Oasis were a Ride clone, I believe, is what the what the thoughts is. Anyway, for those of you that are Ride fans down there, and they are back together, and they've done an album apparently. They were never really quite my thing, and neither was Oasis. But if you want to comment down below as to who you thought was around first, please do it in the comments down below. Who else do we have? We had Chris Hampson, Haley Thorpe, who I don't really know, but Jane Weaver. Now, I saw Jane Weaver at a festival in Hull probably about 18 months ago. She headlined a festival of female artists. And actually, I thought that she was the weakest performer on that night. And I listened to her latest album, and it really wasn't my thing. I think Jane Weaver is not necessarily my sort of thing. And we'll come back to how what I thought her performance was like. We had Joan's Policewoman. Now, I've met Joan's Policewoman because she has actually rehearsed. When she came to Pocklington, she rehearsed in my studio because they were desperately short of some practice space. Lovely woman. She's absolutely fantastic. And what a great artist. And certainly, there were 2 or 3 songs before Jane came out in the first half, and she seemed to take everything to another level. She came out, she played piano with the band, and she had somebody directing the band for her, and her interpretation, I can't remember which song she did now, because the whole evening was a wash, obviously, of Talk songs, which was just fantastic. She was brilliant. Now, there is some footage on YouTube taken from right at the front of the stage, and that I'm not going to include that footage because the vocals sound off key. Now, where we were sat, which was at the back of the back of the stalls, the sound was perfect. So, and I don't quite know what was going on there, whether it was where that person was sat in the auditorium, because I mean, I've looked at where the best place to sit, and actually people saying that close to the stage it's not so great, and certainly at the sides of the stage it's not so great in the Royal Festival Hall. Where we were sat, the sound was brilliant, and where my son and his girlfriend were sat, which was in the balconies certainly for the first half, they said the sound up there was great as well. But so certainly Joan as Policewoman's performance was fantastic and sort of took the gig to another level, and certainly everybody after that we thought in the first half was fantastic. So we had Mark Gardner, My Brightest Diamond, who I saw her playing a very small club gig, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and she's got an absolutely amazing voice. And she came out, and the presenter didn't actually introduce her at the beginning, so we didn't quite know, I didn't quite realise it was her. But she has a fantastic voice, and she opened the whole evening and did a great job. Orlando Weeks. Now, Orlando Weeks is, I believe, from a band called the Maccabees, who I knew a little bit about. He, for me, on the evening, was the closest to Mark Hollis's vocals. Now, he wasn't doing interpretation. He did 2 or 3 songs because he came on in the second half, and he did his own thing. But certainly vocally, he, for me, and my son who was sat next to me said the same thing, that he thought that he encapsulated Mark Hollis's vocal style the best of the evening, and I would certainly agree with that. I mean, his performance was great. remember him being in the Maccabees and listening to a couple of their things. I want to have a listen to his solo album. He's got a solo album out now, so that's definitely on my things to have a proper listen to, because I thought he was great. Who else did we have? Simon Brenner. Now, I'll come back to Simon Brenner. Simon Brenner is the original keyboard player who was only with Talk Talk for the first album. We had Sophie Barker, we had Turin Breaks. Now, Turin Breaks, who I'm actually going to see tonight, they're playing in Pocklington tonight. Sadly, they were in the second half, and it took them a while to set up that, which wasn't their fault. But they did 3 songs and they nailed it. They were absolutely brilliant. The one person that I thought was the weakest of the whole evening was Tim Burgess from the Charlatans. I think vocally, I mean, I was never a Charlatans fan, and as somebody said to me on the train back, that really he was in the Charlatans, his vocals were never that great. Well, he didn't do it. He was, he was pitchy and he was off key. So I'm sorry, Tim, but you didn't really nail it that night.
It's a shame to believe in escape, a life on every face, but that's a change. Till I'm finally left with a name. Tell me too much, I just stare. Maybe I don't know if I should change the feeling that we share. It's a shame.
In the second half, we had Simon Brenner's band. Now, they were just called Simon Brenner's band. Now, they came on, and the idea there was to give us the feeling of what it was like for the really early Talk Talk. So it was a young band of musicians. Simon was playing piano and a synth. They had a guitarist, bassist, drummer and lead vocalist who also played lead guitar. Now, they were young guys, these guys. They were great. They were a really good band. And they really managed to nail that youthful element of what it might have felt like to be a young Talk Talk band. And I think they did a really good job. My son, actually, who sat beside of me, out of the 4 of us, he liked them the least. Certainly, if that band tours, I would definitely go and see them. You could almost say that they would become a Talk tribute band. I'm not really into tribute bands. You could have argued that Simon Brenner, who is a man of my age, playing with a load of 18 to 20 year olds, maybe wasn't the right sort of thing, but I'm happy to gloss over that, really. What else did we have? Yeah, the Jane Weaver. Now, as I said, Jane Weaver, I'd seen her in Hull 18 months ago. When she came out and Jonas Policewoman came out for the second time and did, I think, Life Is What You Make It. And then the final act for the evening was Jane Weaver, who it almost peaked too early, because Jane came out and was absolutely fantastic, and everybody was up and clapping and enjoying it, and it was sort of slightly flat when Jane Weaver came out and did the song that she performed. And then that was the end of the concert, and then we had an encore, which is like where most of the people came back and performed on the last song. So it's almost like, had they switched them round, had Jane Weaver come on before Jonas Policewoman, then it would have been a better ending, I think. What a fantastic evening that concert was. I mean, you could have argued that it might well have been able to sell out 2 nights, but maybe you wouldn't have been able to get everybody together for 2 nights. The organisers were trying to sort out somebody to do the filming for the actual whole concert. Now, I didn't see any cameras, But I hope that happened, and certainly I hope that there's an album, to be fair, because obviously I'm assuming that they were recording it off the desk. So maybe will have a live Talk Mark Hollis celebration album, which would be really, really great if that came together. I don't know whether that's going to happen. That's a wish from me as a Talk fan. And I think it's worth also mentioning who the organisers were, because we had Toby Benjamin, who is the co-author of the Spirit of Talk book. Okay, we had, apologies if I'm murdering your name here, but Benji Usal, head of contemporary music at the South Bank Centre, and Tom Baker, who is the founder of Eat Your Own Ears. So those are the guys that helped put this show together. But what a brilliant evening it really was. Yes, I'm a fan, love the music, but actually I never saw Talk live back in the day. So for me to be able to hear that music live performed really, really well with some of the musicians that actually worked with Talk on the albums and live was a real bonus. And there's another little plus, that on the tube back to where we're staying in London, a guy noticed my Talk teacher again. He said, "What did you think of the gig?" And we got talking, and he was from Durham, this chap, and he said, "Oh well, I used to work at Wessex Studios, where the Talk albums were recorded." And I asked him, I said, "Did you actually work with them?" He said, "No." He says, "I was a trainee engineer, so I moved some microphones around and maybe helped with carrying gear around, but no, I didn't really work on any of that sort of stuff." And he's now a record producer in his own right up in Durham, but obviously records and works down in London when he has to. But a lovely chap, and obviously clearly a massive Talk fan, and was just great to be at the gig. And we got talking about the fact that he'd worked on the tube. And he had a really, really nice story about while he was working on the tube, Prince turned up to perform and turned up with a DAT tape, which was the backing. And the producers of the tube said, "I'm sorry, but this has to be a live show, so where's your backing band?" And Prince said, no, it's new material. I haven't brought a backing band, I've just brought me. I'll play guitar, and I've got a DAT tape, which is the backing tape. And they said, "I'm sorry, but you can't perform." And we're thinking, and he said, "It's amazing. Here is the tube turning around and saying to Prince, 'Sorry, mate, you can't perform because you haven't got a backing band.'" So they kicked Prince off the tube, and they rang a local band who were just down the road in Durham and said, "You've got 2 hours. Can you get here and can you perform live? And you'll have a 20-minute slot on the tube." And they went, "Yeah." And that band was Prefab Sprout, and that apparently was one of the main things that helped to kick off their career. And I just thought it was an absolutely lovely story. So it was really nice to meet you, and I think his name was Peter, the record producer, but don't quote me on that. We didn't swap cards or any of that sort of business. It was just one of those little fleeting meeting of people on a tube train for about 4 stops down in London. If we were going to give, because we normally give stars when Jane's doing the review stuff with me, we normally give stars for this sort of stuff. And This was a 5-star show. It was absolutely superb. And if they did it again tomorrow, I'd be back there trying to get some more tickets to go and see it all again. So thanks so much for watching. If you like what I do, hit the subscribe button and all that usual sort of stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks very much. Bye bye.